lesbian guy.
Why do all the girls have like pink stuff and all the boys have like different color stuff?
Technical issues. There we go. Hey, everybody! Live on ZBN. This is Larry the Male Lesbian with you once again on NOLAz TV, which of course is for NOLAz stands for New Orleans, Louisiana, and little Z for Little Zeitgeist. Everyone needs to change the zeitgeist every once in a while, once in a lifetime. So, hey folks, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and my co-host Denny is yet to get online, and he would be joining us here on the interview 5000, but he's got technical issues on his side. And I also had somebody out there in Cyberland that had committed to come on the show today last week, so if you're out there, call me at malelesbian on Skype. That's all one word, malelesbian. So if you want to be on tonight's show, there you go. And I'm also recording this for the archive, and of course I can edit it afterwards and maybe just discard it if nothing happens. So you got to make something happen for me, or for us, for everybody. And the way you can do that is by calling me at malelesbian on Skype. Now, and until that happens, I am going to riff on what you might expect in future shows. I can tell you this. You know, I go out, I get the videos, I do an event, and then I edit those videos together, and then I make an archive version of the show, which is often quite different than the live version. So, see, you get something extra by joining the live show. You actually get to see me say, and I mean, and you know what I mean. And it's great entertainment. You know, live television, anything could happen. It's like the old, you know, it's like the old, yeah, see, I could even flub my line and forget what I was going to say. So, hey, you can enjoy that all by watching the live version and watch me squirm for material, as the person who committed to call me isn't doing so. So call me at the Interviewtron 5000, which is named 5000. You might ask, why 5000? Well, I took how many versions there are, and I added 4,900 to that, and there you go. It's Interview 5000. Now, I do have some videos to show that I've collected, but basically what I do is I grab these videos, I put them on here, unedited, uncut, raw footage, and give you a little narration of what's going on. But I'm going to tell you, there is a plan, there is a method behind the madness, and I am going to have to put a little bit more effort into this in order to get that across. In the last couple weeks, I have been bogged down with school, and, you know, this is not a paid gig, so I'm sure you can understand that. But I tell you, there is a plan, and I will have a show called The Plan. And it will be very interesting. But suffice it to say that I'm very much into the doing part of this movement and getting us out of phase 1 and into phase 2. I want to start seeing the transition, and I have some ideas on how to do that. And I'm going to be fleshing out some of these ideas in coming shows. I do have a video that I was actually meaning to queue up for tonight's show. Did a little slideshow PowerPoint presentation explaining the wonders of vertical farming, of automated vertical urban food systems that could feed hundreds of thousands of people in an urban area. One of the things is, you may have noticed recently that we have a lot of storms. We have, because of global warming, and whether you believe in it or not, which, you know, if you believe in science, you pretty much have to believe in global warming, because global warming and evolution are the two things that we have the most evidence for, because there's been a constant stream of skeptics who say, hey, you don't have enough evidence. So we gather more and more and more evidence for these skeptics, and they say it's not enough, so we go out and we get more and more and more. So if you believe in science at all, then you pretty much have to believe in evolution and global warming. But having that said, even if you don't believe in it, you have to have noticed that recently there are a lot more storms and the seasons are changing from when they used to be in the past. Insurance companies, they are on the bottom line, wouldn't you say, when it comes to floods and tornadoes and earthquakes and everything that insurance companies have to pay for, right? So don't you know that they are raising their rates based on their actuarial tables, based on the actual data, the actual feedback that they're getting from the marketplace is, hey, it's a lot riskier world out there, so we have to charge higher premiums because our old rubric for the percentages of what could go wrong and how often are off. They're based on past data and they're not based on a climate change model. So guess what? So they change it to a climate change model based on current science known today, and they're able to come out with much more accurate predictions about what the risk really is. And they're in business to make money, and they can't do it if their numbers are off. So they have to make sure that they're accurate. Well, as much as this current zeitgeist can produce accuracy, the insurance companies are saying, yes, global warming is real, because the only way we can make the trending, increasing risk match in such a way that we can make a profit off of it is by accepting the theory of global warming and the speed at which, the rate at which that it is changing our world and changing climate patterns and changing how intense the storms are. Another thing is that the people who grow food, right? They have to know their stuff, especially if they depend on that food to feed themselves. And as you've seen from previous episodes, we grow much of our own food here in New Orleans. We do have a full year-round growing season, which is nice. So we can pretty much feed ourselves all year round. And more people are going to have to become familiar with this. Now, as the global climate change has taken effect, all the temperate zones for the different plants that you would grow have actually shifted to the north. And they've also shifted to higher elevations than what they were as well. But there's only so much up, and there's only so much north before you run out of room. Okay, see what I'm saying? Now, if you want to live in, say, Texas, which is, Texas, Kansas, the tornado capital of the world, if you want to live in Texas a decade or two from now, you're going to have to live indoors. Now, I know that may sound shocking, and it may sound near term, but based on all current science, it's true. If you want to live in Texas in the next couple of decades, you're going to have to live indoors, because it's going to be nothing but the tornado season is going to be like a third of the year, basically, plus there's hurricanes come out of the Gulf. There's going to be severe drought, followed by severe flooding, and this is what the climate models are predicting, right? So if you want to live there, it's going to have to be like a McMurdo situation. McMurdo is the base in Antarctica, where you can't live outside in Antarctica. You have to be protected from the elements. You have to live indoors. There's just no two ways about it. You have to live indoors in a climate-controlled system. You have to bring the environment with you, your own biosphere, if you will. Now, they do grow some food there, and they do have some house plants there and so on. But if they had their own food production system, which of course can also produce oxygen, which would make us eligible for long-distance space travel. But anyway, that's another aside. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Just had a fresh salad out of the front yard. Anyway, so we're going to have to live indoors, right? So, what kind of structure is there that can withstand elements like super tornadoes that are 5 miles wide and hurricanes that are larger than the Gulf of Mexico? Well, we're going to have to live in some sort of dome, that's going to evenly distribute all the pressure from the extremely high winds. Starting to sound like Jacques Fresco right there off the bat, Dome City, basically. I mean, seriously, that's what we're looking at. Now, building one huge, big dome, there's a certain, what do they call it, diminishing returns. So there would be a certain specific size between too small and too big that you would, you'd want to aggregate entire, say, living quarters with, all these, like, apartment buildings in a certain city block, let's say, would be covered by a dome, and there'd be other domes in other city blocks, and then you'd have like a big municipal building that might be bigger, and so on. I'm not saying take a dome that would go all the way across the city of Dallas, for instance, although, I mean, that's conceivable, you could do that, and especially with nanotechnology, and if you could grow it out of the ground, but I digress. With nanotechnology, I mean, everything is possible. Including micromanaging the biosphere. But anyway, that's a total another aside. And that's another transition story for a future show. However, with just current conventional technology, we will have to move indoors, basically. And we will have to take our food with us. The good thing about living indoors, though, is that it's perfectly made for us. It's climate controlled to be the perfect temperature that we desire, that we thrive in. It is. We can also do the same thing for the plants. We can make sure that the plants are, have their ultimate, temperature and moisture and nitrogen and, plus when they're indoors, you don't really have to worry about pestilence. All that stuff is kept away. It's a controlled environment. You don't have to worry about high winds. I mean, that's why you built the thing in the first place, right? And floods and so on. Obviously, it's going to have a big flood wall around it, kind of like Galveston does today. And it's going to have sump pumps and all those kind of stuff as well. And we're going to have all these contingency plans for all the different things that Mother Nature can throw at us. But ultimately, if we're going to live anywhere south of Canada in the next couple of decades, not that far off, we're going to have to move indoors. And this necessity accelerates the time schedule that we should see the transition. Because in my mind, I know what Peter Joseph has said. And if you look up an archive of NOLAz Radio, you'll find an episode called The Imperative of Now, where I discuss this very topic, and I played the audio from Peter Joseph. But he basically, it's going to be a long-term thing, it's going to be a generational thing, and, the zeitgeist takes a long time to change. There's entrenched vested interest and self-appointed defenders of the status quo, and, you can't change human behavior and human nature overnight, and blah, blah, blah. But here's the problem with that. We do not have the luxury of time. We just simply do not. So, therefore, this change must take effect over the next 2 decades. Therefore, it will take effect over the next 2 decades. Yes, we are incredibly lucky to even exist at all in the universe, because dark energy had to be just the right amount in order for matter to exist and not to obliterate itself. And we had to be just the right distance from the sun. And we had to be in just the right conditions in the jungles of Africa in order for intelligence to emerge. And so on and so forth. And right now, we are at the end. We are standing on the shoulders of those who stood on the shoulders of those who stood on the shoulders of people who won the lottery over and over and over and over again, the cosmic lottery, that we even exist to this day. Following that trend line, I suspect that the luck is going to continue, lest we do not. And it's not all luck. In fact, some of it is really hard work. I mean, the reason why you're lucky enough today to be born in a world that has refrigeration and has suffrage for women is because it has to be that way, otherwise it wouldn't be that way. See what I'm saying? So whether it's sacrifice, whether it's luck, whatever it is, we got to get this done. And we don't have the luxury of time. It's got to get done. And it will get done because necessity is the mother of invention. And when it comes to survival, that's what we do as humans. We survive, we adapt, we recreate. I mean, that's, you know what I'm saying? And furthermore, my Gaia view of the world, which is the closest thing I'll ever get to believing in any kind of God, and I don't even think it's a God, I just think it's just the computing power that it takes to regulate nature, which is a self-regulating system, which does keep inventory and has a distribution system and many other things. I mean, obviously, you know, that's probably where our belief in God came from in the first place, but I think the reason why the Gaia, the biosphere, allowed for or provided for an intelligent species to emerge is because Gaia on its own cannot rule out the randomness of the universe. You know, probably was quite PO'd about the asteroid that hit us and was like, you know, there's probably only one good way to stop something like that, and that would be an intelligent species. Or, you know, the jet stream that suddenly changed. Just do, you know, the Earth wobbled on its axis or whatever, the jet stream changed, and now suddenly a fertile crescent becomes a desert because that jet stream is buttoned up against a mountain, you know. Well, we as humans have the power to remove the tops of mountains. Have you ever heard of such technology? I mean, that's pretty godlike, you know, power there. And we can do that, but what do we use it for? Do we use it to save the ecosystem and to save the biosphere? Or just for some narrow, silly interest, you know? And, you know, in the long run, we're all dead. So the future is really the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that's permanent, not even we are. But anyway, I digress. So, all right, so that's basically the deal. I've got a show that's going to be coming up. It's called The Plan. It's going to be, I'm going to roll out some transition ideas, and the main focus, the main backbone, the main outline, if you will, is the fact that it is necessary, and therefore it will happen. And so when these people come together to solve these problems, they will see as they solve these problems, they will see that capitalism is just freaking in the way, you know. It's kind of like the financial sector used to be in service of the rest of the economy. You know, it used to be that everyone, you know, 90% of everything was doing stuff and making stuff, and only 10% of it was keeping track of the numbers. Well, boy, has that changed, right? So now if you sit around doing nothing and producing nothing, you make all these gobs of money, but if you actually do stuff and work for a living, you're poor as dirt. Well, you know, these realities are coming to fruition, and when we actually go to implement these solutions that we must do in order to survive, people are going to see the conflict of interest inherent in our current zeitgeist. So, now, moving on to our Around the House segment, I want to show you what's been going on around here in the garden and around the house. So, let me start with this one. This is our homemade pizza that we made from garden stuff and homemade dough. This is after the Mardi Gras event. Had the folks over to the house to have a little pizza party after.
How do you like the pizza?
I think it's scrumdiddlyumptious. It's really.
I think I'm gonna have to use a new term for it to just expand upon his term. It's gonna be super scrumdiddlyumptious. Thank you. So where'd you get that pizza?
Right out the front yard.
Right out the front yard with a few ingredients from the local market, which hopefully it's probably very healthy and cheap. Yeah. We got asparagus in there. We've got black olives in there. We have it looks like sausage, but that's just beans. Onions. We got some bell peppers. Wheat bread. What else is in there? You think? Well, you know.
Flax, vital wheat gluten.
Flaxseed.
Well, here's the chef right here.
Garlic. I see garlic in there. Roasted
Sesame
garlic.
seeds, flax seeds, garlic, roasted peppers, onions, portobello mushrooms. I don't know.
I love mushrooms.
Onions,
Asparagus.
asparagus, bean sprouts, kidney beans.
Oh, she's still going. Wait.
Most all of it grown. Most all of it grown here at Zeit House, New Orleans.
Yeah, very good.
It's tough whenever you, like, I'm dealing with the issue at work right now where I'm pretty much the head server, and I'm wishing there was somebody there that had been more experienced than me still, just because of the fact.
Okay, so we're getting ready to put on the second level of the worm farm. So right here is some shredded copy paper. To that, I'm going to add, this is a bunch of different things. It's the soy milk grit, as well as it's some garden waste.
Mmm, yummy, yummy, yummy for some wormy wormies. But yeah, we got 2 levels going on our worm farm now, so we're actually producing enough worm castings juice for, what, 2 planters, 3 planters, boxes?
Right, I've added some dirt to the top, on top of the copy paper and slurry that I made in the blender. And it's going to go right here into this worm cafe. Now, see. Alright, we don't have a whole lot of worms on the lid, so that's good. Things are not trying to escape. Looks like this needs some work, and I'm going to have to clean this out, but first I got to get the worms out of it. Apparently I have overfed them. So let me get them into this new home.
See, what's cool is
Wait, I just remembered. The first thing I have to do is I have to pile all this stuff up on one side so that the worms will have a way to crawl from the lower bin into the upper bin. So I got to pile this all up over here. And I'm piling it up. You can see we still got quite a few worms in here. They seem to be doing alright, in spite of my overfeeding them.
oh, this is really good for your skin too. You take some of this worm poop and rub it in your face.
Piled up there pretty good.
Wonderful.
See, I want the bottom of this to touch the top of the next bin.
See, what's cool about worm castings is they pretty much give you all the benefits of chemical farming without much of the detriments of chemical farming. And it really makes your plants resilient and strong and grow really fast, just like they're being fertilized with chemical fertilizers. But actually, all the micronutrients are already there, and it's balanced in ways that pH and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really, really cool stuff. I mean, what the worms do is the work of a huge agro laboratory. Yeah, it's better than Miracle Grow. I mean, this stuff actually will sell per volume at a much higher rate than
Alright, so I'm
chemical
mashing
farming.
it down.
But it's just like, you can still say you're organic and have liquid fertilizer at the same time, So it's really, the worms are amazing. And and the worms really reproduce really fast too. So no matter how big you make your bin, they'll fill it no matter what. What was that, Tina?
We're getting right at 3 gallons of juice a week now.
She says 3 gallons of juice a week out of our worm farm.
Enough to feed our entire yard.
So better results and good for the environment too. Everybody wins. And that's the way it should be in ecology. But you see, this is a completely artificial environment other than the food that I'm giving them. They're in a plastic container, and that's pretty high technology. But it just goes to show a marriage between the new and the old, that we can use what we know today and what we knew yesterday and combine those two things and make life better than ever for everyone and everything involved. Just got to get rid of capitalism and we'll be well on our way.
And drain.
There it is, Black Gold, Louisiana tea. It's a bubbling crude. That's worm food, that is. No, well, not food for the worms, but food from the worms.
Okay. Alright, the worms are fed.
Alright, let's see what's coming up next here. Ooh, babies. Look at these babies. These are mostly tomato plants. There's some pepper plants in there. And these will actually be sold, most of them anyway, at the local farmer's market for a little residual income for the Zide house. And that's actually part of the plan, as I was mentioning earlier. Part of the plan is in order to be self-financed, Zide houses and zeitgeist communities that are attempting to build their own cities and whatnot, before the current zeitgeist has died, will have to do it kind of the way the Amish do it, which is they have their own separate lives and everything, but they have a little county store and they just produce more than they consume, and with that extra production they sell it at the county store and pay their property tax, and then everybody leaves them alone, So that's what we're going to be doing at the Zide houses, according to the plan, or at least the plan as I'm going to present it to you, and it'll be up to you to accept or reject or modify. Up here we got some more babies. So you start them out all together in a pot under 24-hour light.
More dirt and more cups.
Yeah, so you put them in one big thing like that, they all pop up, and then you separate them out into individual cups. But those LED lights are really super efficient. They only produce the light that the plants actually use. Which reminds me of the slideshow presentation that will be part of the archive of this show. Talks about how in Korea they actually have solar-powered LED lights underground growing ginseng. Oh, here's our Android.
Faster and better than ginseng ever grows.
Yeah, it grows 5 times as fast and 5 times as big. These are mostly tomatoes here. You'll see in the next few videos that they'll be outside and we'll be growing them. But Mrs. B, we call her, with the lady you just saw, she's an artificial person. But she's not very bright because she does not have artificial intelligence installed yet. She's just a simple mannequin. But she dreams of someday being a real boy. So these are slugs. Those snails, see what it is you grow your garden and everything wants some of it. Everything in nature, and snails and slugs also definitely want it.
One just went right up in the wall.
So, apparently we've got some sort of, break in our perimeter, security breach. And so we sprayed the garden with some Bacillus thuringiensis. And what that does is it makes the slugs...
Get rid of the slug. Get it out of my bathroom. I need to feed it.
Well, if you're going to pee, why don't you take care
I got rid of the one that was on the commode. You take care of it, wimp.
Yeah, but you're going to be
I don't
right
care.
there. You're going to be right there.
You're the one that you got to pee too. You get rid of it. I got rid of one. The other one got away. So get rid of that one before it gets away.
Well, you got rid of the one, you can get rid of the other one.
Take a piece of tissue and fucking pick it up and flush it.
I don't want to.
Well, too bad.
Yeah, those slugs are a little bit icky.
That's the crap you're going to do when it comes time to cut a chicken's head off.
Well, you said you'd do that.
You're going to help.
Why would I do that?
You're going to help the grid. You got to work.
Well, I'm gonna...
You got to work either at a job or work off the grid to eat and produce electricity and all that crap.
Well, I'm taking electronics. With green energy, so...
I know that.
So I'm gonna do that, and you can do the slugs. So yeah, so the slugs are pretty icky, and they get like this slime stuff that sticks to you. Oh, there's some fire ant damage. We got these fire ants down here in the south, Louisiana, Texas.
I don't like them.
Yeah, they're bad. Fire ants are bad, okay?
Oh,
What is that?
strawberry. The real strawberries.
Yeah, we grew these right in our garden.
Our garden.
Fresh from the garden.
How juicy is that? That's the way a real strawberry is supposed to taste, right?
Yeah.
No chemicals either. No pesticides.
It's good.
Come on.
Oh yeah, more snails. This one actually here, this is a 4-minute video. I'm not going to torture you with that, but it takes us way down. But what's really cool is you take a 4-minute video and then you play it back at 800 times speed, and then it goes what it would travel in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And then you put that Benny Hill music over it, you know, that. Anyway, so that's that. Somebody ran over they just, pulled in or pulled out of the driveway and ran right over some of our seedlings. So that's what this is. There's Tina. She's real happy about it too. Look at her. Yeah, so, looks like most will survive. It wasn't too bad, you know, some of the plants were...
survive, but it's just a lot of lost work.
Yeah. So we were able to recover most of that, but yeah, so somebody, you know, was just careless pulling in or pulling out of the driveway and ended up running over them. And, alright, so that brings us back to this video. This is our latest garden video. Urban garden in the Middle New Orleans. House, New Orleans.
Look at them tomatoes. They're awesome. I think you did. Let's go.
So,
You're gonna make it rain for sure, huh? Yep. Both spring tonight and in the morning. Yep. I got some things that I transplanted.
it's our neighbor Johnny coming over to see what we're doing.
But I got some things that I recently transplanted, and
What is that?
flower.
I mean, what is it?
It's like the iris, but it's something. I mean, it's related, but it's not the ones that has.
Somebody had one like that at church today. Yes, Saturday, Sunday. Same color.
But yeah, these little these little bedding plants. And these little bedding plants.
Yeah, my
hair
hair one's
drink
just
about
length, I
every
can't
day.
do anything with it.
That bird left.
But yeah, it's of the iris family. I don't know exactly. You know, normal, the old-fashioned iris. This leaf right here.
You trimmed that real good, huh?
What?
That clean out.
Yeah. I always keep it trimmed around.
But shouldn't it be on top of the white thing?
I don't know. I thought it was two different things. One's Tiffany's, one's ours.
So yeah, so that's the garden in the front yard. Give you a little tour here and then I guess wrap up the show for the day. Right here we've got some cabbages and those things going up the trellis there behind the cabbages. Those are peas. It's really cool how you can grow like all this different food in a concentrated area. That right there is a little bit of damage from probably them slugs that you saw in the bathroom earlier. But yeah, we sprayed a little Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a bacteria. It produces a toxin that makes slugs sick, but it doesn't make humans sick. And it's it's a naturally produced product. I mean, it's considered an organic pesticide. And that's meant that the slugs had to get out of the garden and into the house, or at least that's my theory. And so they were like trying to find a way to escape the stuff, but they eat it, it gets in their tummy, and it makes them sick.
Like you stay on the damn concrete, you can get out of here without hitting it.
Yeah, she's talking about how somebody ran over it. But yeah, so that's, again, the gist of this show is how do we transition out of capitalism and into a resource-based economy? What physically can you actually do, rather than just sit around and talk about it? And so that's what we're doing. We're transitioning in our own house, trying to get other people to join us. Eventually, we'll have a big enough side house here to have economies of scale to where, we have somebody who cuts hair in the house and somebody who's went to culinary school and cooks most of the meals, and, we can pay them for that or compensate them for their time in some sort of way, time bucks. If we get a mechanic or especially like a doctor and so on and so forth, and we combine all of our skills, what we actually need to have done for ourselves and our families and for the things that we own, although in the Zeithhouses we'll own them collectively. The economy of scale, that will mean that even though your official income with the IRS may only be $2,000 and you save nearly 100% of it, that you'll have the lifestyle of someone who, say, makes more like $100,000 or $250,000 a year as far as your access and use of resources, Craftsman tool set, a good $10,000 to $20,000 Craftsman tool set that is shared by 200 people, then everyone kicks in $100 or whatever, and you get a really nice tool set that everybody can use. Anyone who owns a $20,000 set of tools will tell you that most of the time, most of the tools are not in use. But by having them in constant use and having our on-site commune mechanic who's constantly working on all the members' cars, he doesn't get paid for that, not in dollars anyway, but everyone who didn't have to pay that money to their mechanic, now that's considered a contribution to the household. And because he's, done that for them, then when he needs something done, like, needs his eyes, ears, nose, and throat checked, then the household doctor can provide that service, and obviously we'll have gardeners and cooks and so on and so forth. And, those duties, of course, will also rotate so that everyone is familiar with what everybody else does. But the ultimate point of it is to be a high-tech Amish, to be, and to have open enrollment, too. Eventually we want dynamic equilibrium to where the demand on the system, the demand on of new members as well as existing members equals the supply. So therefore it's a resource-based economy. So that no matter how fast people join us, we can provide them with their needs and desires from day one. So there's no need to fight. There's no need to come and take our stuff. They can just come and share in the bounty. And especially with the hacker spaces like Open Source Ecology, opensourceecology.org, and hackerspaces.org, we already have off the shelf the technology that we need to make the technology that we need to automate our aquaponic systems so that everyone has free food that would consist of fish as a meat and every other type of vegetable matter you can possibly imagine. Plus, the aquaponic system will also treat our sewage, which will be one less bill that we'll have to pay. So that is the transition plan. And along those lines, you're talking, it grows and we'll have to move. So the way I'm envisioning it right now is, say, like a Zeithaus, like Zeithaus Austin or Zeithaus New Orleans or Zeithaus Hattiesburg. We'll basically have like a roommate situation where, a bunch of people go in on a house together and therefore they pay a lot less rent. Well, they also go in on food production together and their food bill comes down. By the way, have you been to the supermarket lately? Have you noticed how fast food prices are rising? Well, that's going to continue, especially with the price of gas, and and because there's all these droughts and floods and environmental degradation happening, food is harder to produce. So anyway, so price food's going up. Hey, if you could produce your own for far less than what it would cost you to buy it at the store, then wouldn't you? Especially if you could set robots and automated systems and timers and pumps on the tasks for you to do most of the work. Basically, you set it up, a lot of front-loaded work, but then once it's set up, all you really have to do is pick it. And you could probably even get a robot to do that for you. So again, like the high-tech Amish. But as this thing grows, we're going to need more room for living quarters. We're going to need more room for agriculture. We're going to need more room for the different professions. And it seems to me that there are some technologies that are already exist and already in use by the current zeitgeist that are further along that path that we could make use of right now today. And so, for instance, Walmart, big box store. Walmart is a technology that is beyond capitalism. Just like a resource-based economy, they use just-in-time delivery to make supply exactly equal demand. in a predictive way. Dynamic equilibrium, just as we advocate in the Zeitgeist movement. But because Walmart is a technology that is beyond capitalism, it basically undoes capitalism, which requires competition, which requires a lot of small players competing with each other so that no one becomes a billionaire and gets 80% market share and has monopoly pricing and all that kind of stuff. So Walmart is a technology that is beyond capitalism, and they have this big space where they aggregate these products and drive the price down and, of course, run small business out of business and so on. But that space is very similar to a distribution system, aka resource-based economy distribution system of Jacques Fresco. And as a transition, I know Jacques Fresco says, yeah, you just tear everything down and just build from the ground up. Okay, well, in the meantime, let's try a few other things. And we will get to that eventually. But in the meantime, what I suggest as part of the plan, which is I'm slowly rolling out in increments, so you got to watch the live show every week. But the part of the plan is to retrofit a mall. Now, hear me out. As I was saying, as the Zeithhouses grow and consolidate in regions, we're going to need more living space. We're going to need more space for professionals. We're going to need more lab space. We're going to need, wood shop. We're going to need an exercise center. We're going to need a food distribution center, like a cafeteria, if you will. We're going to need, an open living space in between, like a neutral area where people can go from one place to another without having to go outside. And we're going to need some space to grow food, right? So it seems to me that of everything that exists in the current zeitgeist, a mall seems to fit the bill quite well. What you do is like I said, you're going to need spaces for the different professions. Well, if you've ever been to a mall, you'll notice that at a mall there's a space there for a chiropractor, for a tattoo artist. There's a space there for maybe a carpet cleaner service. But there's all these spaces for these services as well as retail outlets where they basically distribute goods. So a mall is already a distribution system in the sense that it's a place to distribute products and services. Well, what else do you have at a mall? You have restaurants, right? Well, some of these restaurants are like cafeteria style. So let's say you take a Piccadilly, right? And you retrofit that. Of course, you want to have healthy food and choices and whatnot, but you have an a la carte thing where people, they're hungry, they go. It's kind of like a buffet at a one of those freestyle cruises where there's just these buffets that go on 24 hours a day, and you just go there and eat whenever you want to. People say, oh, well, everyone would be fat and lazy if they had that. Well, no, because what will happen is people get bored with it, obviously, that's one thing. But actually, without marketing, without things there saying, okay, you are unhappy, and the only way that you can be happy is through this sugar, salt, and fat, and this addictive product that you have to come back for over and over again, cyclical consumption, so that we can make a profit and enslave you to your addiction, whatever that may be, whether it be pharmaceuticals or video games or, in this case, food. Instead of having the chefs and the marketers and everybody get together to enslave you to your addictions, these people will actually be on the side of your health and will coordinate with doctors, and certain meal plans will be made for members, special meal plans if they happen to be diabetic or vegetarian or whatever. So anyway, you have this a la carte thing that's going all the time. Obviously, the computers and robots would do most of the work. Producing the food, there's a McDonald's right now in operation in California that's completely automated. All you do is you pull up, put in your credit card in the marquee through the drive-thru, punch the button for whatever it is that you want. Robots pull all the food out, cook it up. There's actually a robot arm called Flipper that actually flips the hamburgers. And it was originally designed to create computers, computer components, but it's actually been retrofitted to cook hamburgers and on demand using just-in-time delivery, where they're actually able to predict the demand, because of lunch rush and dinner rush and everything else, just like they do today, only with artificial intelligence and, you know, a completely automated system. So anyway, you put these existing technologies that are already in use today by the current capitalist zeitgeist, and you build them for a purpose rather than a profit. Put them into a mall that you've retrofitted to where you have a space for your doctor, a space, you know, a lot of these malls today have you know, places where you can exercise. This one down the road here, Elmwood Shopping Center, has Elmwood Fitness Center in it. And it's this huge, you know, it looks like the inside of the Star Trek Enterprise, you know, with the different levels of balconies where you can run around. It's got all these indoor swimming pools and outdoor swimming pools, and it's got free weights as well as Nautilus machines, and they have aerobics classes and cycling classes and all this kind of stuff, right? Well, you would just use those existing facilities, just, you know, keep the upkeep on them, and then you've got your, you know, showers right there. You know, obviously the robots would sanitize after each use, but, you know, you could have, you know, communal showers and exercise centers and places to eat food. You would also have your own living quarters with, you know, your own toiletries and your own shower and your own toothbrush and all that kind of stuff as well. But I would think that most people would pretty much use their room just to sleep in, because obviously they're going to be out, you know, hanging with people and, you know, going where the party's at and hanging out in the free spaces and, you know, getting together on certain projects to grow. Hey, maybe people want to have kiwis growing, you know, but you're too far north. Well, you have to figure out how to do an add-on to the mall to create an indoor greenhouse type situation where you can create the climate that you need to create the food product that you want locally, you know, without the need or use of petrochemicals to transport it to you and so on. But on top, you know, most of these malls have flat roofs, and on the roof you'd have to reinforce the structure, obviously, but you could build you could put a whole big garden up there and all that space on the roof. You could also put solar panels up there, but the thing of it is that by putting a garden there, it's almost like it's earth sunk, and that way it's actually able to absorb the heat that would normally go into the building, and you'd have to siphon off in air conditioning. It's just waste energy. Well, that would actually be converted into food, and the ground by that process would be the soil that the plants are growing in by that process, and through evaporation and other things would be kept cool, which would mean that your cooling bill inside the building would be much lower. And you can put solar panels anywhere. You can put them on the side of the building. You know, you might not get as much flux, but any surface area that's not horizontal, you could use for solar panels. And part of the parking lot, too, would also be used with above-ground planters, and solar panels would also populate the parking lot. And because we don't need transportation, we won't need any cars at all. And in fact, Google already has a car on the road today, licensed and driving today, driven by GPS and artificial intelligence, using technologies like this, which is the Xbox 360 Connect. Anyway, it uses technologies like that to actually perceive a three-dimensional universe in the same way we do, with two eyes, binocular vision. And anyway, so, you know, we'll have a Google car that'll come pick us up to take us anywhere we need to go and get on the subway and all that kind of stuff. We don't need transportation, so therefore we don't need cars, which means we've got these huge parking lots that we can do a lot with. So, you know, we would have our farmer's market there to sell our surplus, to pay the rent or the property tax or whatever if we happen to own it outright. We could actually, you know, build some living quarters out there in the parking lot. And what would be really nice would be is if we had like, say, living quarters. Like right now, you'll notice that like a lot of malls nearby, maybe just like right across the street or even adjacent to the parking lot, there'll be housing units there, you know, like apartment buildings or even low-income housing. Well, that could be living quarters, and it could also be a lot more efficient since people won't need kitchens because the robots are doing all the cooking at a central location in the mall commune, in the cafeteria. You won't need to have space. You won't need your own refrigerator. You won't need a kitchen at all. You won't need a stove. You won't need a refrigerator. And that's more space that can be used for other things. I would think that most people would use those spaces as their own personal laboratory or shop, where they would actually get on the computer and check into the central database or the internet or whatever it happens to be at that moment in history, and collaborate with other people and do little projects, which you're going to see on future episodes of NOLAz TV. I am a mad scientist, and I do have my own little lab here, and you'll be able to see some of my experiments and different things, where I make my own furniture, we make our own soap, we're, growing our own food, and so on. But I'm a jack of all trades, and if we got our specialists together in this mall, and we had all of our professionals in a row down one hallway, and we had all of our food production down another hallway, and recreation down another hallway, fitness down another hallway, and so on, we could really achieve these economies of scale where our labor would not go into the pocket of some rich kid who inherited wealth the way it is now in the current capitalist system. We would actually be able to capture that labor and use it for ourselves, and use that productivity for ourselves. One of the ways that you can know how much productivity we're actually losing in the working class is if you look at the productivity in the 1950s compared to what it is today. We are about 4T times, that's 40 times, as productive on average and cumulatively. The American workforce is 40 times more productive than they were in the 1950s. And back then, they were predicting that because of automation entering the plants, with the unions were all crazy, oh my God, you can't let that happen, it kills jobs. But by not allowing automation into the plants, it stymies progress, right? So the compromise was 40-hour work week becomes law, and by the year 2000, which is way in the future, we'll be down to a 20-hour work week or a 10-hour work week, and eventually, as computers and robots do everything, we become the Jetsons, and labor becomes obsolete. We become a leisure society, and leisure is important to democracy. Democracy is not possible without leisure time to do things like what I'm doing right now, to disseminate information that the Fourth Estate refuses to do, the media. So we have to become the media. Anyway, I digress. So we retrofit the mall. We capture our own labor that by owning the mall and all the systems and computers and robots within it collectively as a, this is our interface with the current zeitgeist, as a, well, I'm giving away too much of the plan in this one episode without visuals. Wow, I don't know if I should do that. The hour's almost up. But let me go ahead and give you a little hint. So we capture if you think about the fact that even though our productivity over the last half century has gone up more than 40 times, 40 times, and yet the work week has not been reduced. If you think about that reality for a moment, if your work week is not reduced and yet you're producing more, shouldn't you get paid more? Well, according to the IRS median household income in 1971 was $9,500. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $49,000. Well, the median household income today in the United States of America is about $49,000, right? However, that's household income, not individual income. Back in 71, and the reason why I picked that year is because that was the year I was born. By the way, I'm having my, what is it, my 12th annual 29th birthday this year. Anyway, so back then in 1971, most households were one income. Today, they're 2, 3, or more incomes for that same median household income. So basically, the individual income has been cut in half or more since 1971. So our productivity is factors of 10, well, let me not exaggerate. It's many, many multiples, many, tenfold or more, definitely more than that, productivity-wise. That's how much our productivity has grown over the last half century. And yet we're not getting paid 40 times as much, and we were at a 40-hour work week, but do you know anybody who's working a 1-hour work week right now because their productivity is 40 times as much that they get paid, say, let's say if you normally make $500 in a week, say $100 a day, that's $500 a week. What if you could make $500 an hour, but you only worked 1 hour? Would anybody go for that? Anybody out there, would you go for that? Well, that's basically what we're advocating. That's basically what we're offering here, or at least what I'm going to be pushing the movement to offer, is a way to achieve the lifestyle of someone who makes $250,000 a year as far as your access and use of resources. However, your official income with the official IRS would be more like, say, $2,000 to $3,000, of which you save more than 90%. That's what I'm getting at here. And the way that's possible is by capturing our own labor to be able to use it amongst ourselves rather than using it to make already rich people even richer, which is pretty much like the only survival strategy for our class, is to make people who already have too much, so much that they don't even know what to do with it, to give them more. And that's where our productivity has gone to, But if we had a worker, that's what I was trying to think of before, a worker-owned cooperative as the front, as the interface with the current zeitgeist, then we could run our high-tech Amish commune that would produce enough abundance to pay our property tax so that we can be left alone, and also create a little residual savings for each of the members as an official income, as well as, hey, if it doesn't work out or whatever, you can always go back to the old zeitgeist and you still have some money in the bank, basically. So anyway, so that's, the plan. As I say, I'm going to flesh that out in more detail with better visuals in future episodes. But that's what I'm going for. And so, for those of you who have watched this entire episode, which is now about to conclude, I want to say that the next event here in New Orleans will be going to Tulane University. I have 400. Thank you, Ian from Florida, for the 400 DVDs of Zeitgeist moving forward. I think there's 200 in here, and I got another 200 in it. So I got 400 of those, and I'm going to take the little sleeves. I don't have the sleeves, but I have these little sleeves I can print the website out on and so on, and put them in there and hand them out and say, hey, free DVD. And then, oh, really? Well, what's on it? It's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. It's the Zeitgeist movement. Have you ever heard of it? But anyway, I'm hoping that will net us some new active members in the New Orleans area. So if you're in the New Orleans area and you are interested in this event and actually going to Tulane, my schedule, I pretty much work for myself these days, so my schedule is flexible, although not completely open, but it is flexible. Get in touch with me, malelesbian, on Skype, which is right here behind me. In fact, this is the interview 5000, and 5000, you may be asking why. Well, I took how many versions of it there are, and I added 4,999 to it. And so this is the interview 5000. If you go malelesbian on Skype, that is my username. It's all one word. Gender convergence, science-based gender instead of cultural-based gender is what that's about. But anyway, if you look me up, malelesbian on Skype. You could call in right now, in fact, before the end of the show if you'd like to be interviewed. Anyway, this is how I'm going to do interviews in the future. And I can do them, I can record them in advance and just play them, or you can just show up right now. But anyway, contact me through there, especially if you're in the New Orleans area, so that we can get together and do an event. Also, malelesbian.org, that's the way to contact me. And the Zeitgeist New Orleans, and there's also a link through the Facebook page and a lot of good stuff. So keep in touch, and with that, we will see y'all. As I try to tell Brian Williams, he can't really see me, but anyway, I will see you in the future.
The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism, to rabid nationalist fervor, are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed.